You've probably been asked at least a few times in your life this question: how many languages do you speak? For some, this might be an easy question to answer. For others, however, things get a little complicated. Hi everyone, welcome back to LinguaDiscovery. My name is Josh, and today we shall explore the topic of language versus dialect. First, let us define these terms in a general sense. Generally speaking, the term language refers to a collection of words as well as the conventions we use with them, like grammar and spelling, to facilitate communication. The spoken and written versions are usually discussed the most with regards to this topic. Some examples of languages include English, which is the one that I am using right now to communicate with you, French, Thai, Chinese, Turkish, Cherokee, and Punjabi. The term dialect describes a particular variety of a language. A dialect may differ in vocabulary, grammar, or pronunciation, but it usually adheres to the majority of the rules of the language in which it is spoken. Dialects can be identified by other factors, such as social class, or their use in a particular geographic location. Some examples of dialects include British English, Quebecois French, Egyptian Arabic, and Swiss German. A common notion that people have is that if two ways of speaking are not mutually intelligible, then they should be classified as separate languages. Let us examine some case studies. Standard versions of Swedish, Danish, and Norwegian can all be read and understood by someone who knows one of the other languages with little difficulty. However, united under a shared writing system with specialized characters for local varieties, speakers of Mandarin, Cantonese, and Shanghainese, all part of the umbrella term of Chinese, cannot understand each other at all without any prior experience with the other varieties. For example, let's take a look at a sample sentence. Here's a side-by-side comparison of Mandarin, Cantonese, and Shanghainese. English, have you eaten yet? Mandarin, 你吃过饭了吗? Cantonese, 你食咗飯未啊? Shanghainese, 侬飯食過啦吧? You may notice a common character that refers to rice or meal that all three varieties share, but the pronunciation and other aspects of each sentence differ. As such, they are perhaps even more different than Spanish and Portuguese to say, since those two languages are pretty similar in vocabulary and pronunciation. There also exist cases when different varieties use different scripts. Inner Mongolia in China uses the traditional Mongolian script, written from top to bottom, while Mongolia uses the Cyrillic alphabet. Despite the difference in writing systems, varieties of Mongolian are generally classified to be one single language. So where does the boundary lie? How different do two dialects have to be counted as separate languages? What role do writing systems play in this situation? More often than not, a central driving force, politics, plays a bigger role than we think. Consider the following situation. You live in this imaginary nation with 100 different spoken varieties. The further you go from your local region, the harder it becomes to understand other people. This is especially troublesome. So, what can be done? Nations and governments around the world have long sought an answer to this question. One of the most popular and particularly effective methods of achieving this is through language standardization. In most states, whatever language that's spoken in the capital is usually selected as the basis for the national language. Languages existing elsewhere within the state are then deemed as dialects or mere varieties of the same language, though differences in pronunciation may be great. In China, Beijing Mandarin forms the basis of Putonghua, or common language today. In Japan, the Tokyo variety of Japanese was pushed to become the standard version of the language after the Meiji Restoration. In France, Parisian French is considered the standard version and is also the version that second language learners study around the world. However, language standardization brings consequences that may directly determine the vitality of the affected dialects. In an attempt to unify Italy, dictator Benito Mussolini sought to standardize Italian, deeming other varieties as inferior and unsophisticated. Local varieties of speech were prohibited in the public sphere. Strong nationalist or ethnic ideals may constitute a resistance to language change. The standardized variety would be promoted on the national scale, while other varieties would undergo various degrees of language loss, leading to extreme situations where they become severely endangered. In these circumstances, groups have refused to call their spoken varieties dialects in an effort to preserve their unique identities and resist language endangerment. In their understanding, what they are speaking is a language. In a nation with multiple languages or varieties of a language, a push for a standardized national language would contribute to what is known as diglossia, a scenario where two languages or two dialects of the same language are spoken in a community, sometimes by the same people, under various circumstances. The phrase is typically used to refer to languages that have separate high and low colloquial forms. Singaporean English or Singlish is an informal, colloquial form of English that the people of the Asian nation of Singapore use. Many are adept at code switching between Singlish and Standard English in daily life, using the former in informal settings and the latter in formal business situations. So, how different do individual varieties need to be in order to be considered a language? The line is murky. Take, for example, a Scottish elder from the countryside having a conversation in English with you. You might soon realize that, wait, I can't understand a thing. Does this then make Scottish English its separate language? Differences in pronunciation and the native tongue that we grew up with will, more often than not, give us an accent. Yet, with a thick enough accent or different enough vocabulary and sentence structure, it might just be its own language. These are just a few of the various different factors at play when determining an answer to this troublesome question that has been bothering linguists for a while now. Notice how in this video I tried to avoid using the term dialect altogether, even though we are literally discussing the difference between a dialect and a language. The sophisticated process behind this classification is exactly the reason why. As such, many linguists opt for the term variety instead, as we all speak some form of a human language. There is no standard answer to distinguish between a language and dialect even today. Debates persist, and perhaps we will never determine a defining answer. The diverse languages in this world reflect human ingenuity and our different ways of trying to understand the world. Though we are on the same boat together, perhaps this individuality is reflective of what each person has to offer. Thanks for watching this video. Feel free to leave a comment below if you are interested, and I hope to see you next time at LinguaDiscovery.